Mild week ahead for us here in Perth, Mon.
Great. Thank you, Liz. That's the program this hour. Time for 9 News at 6 live right now.
Tonight the date is set. The days of Fortress WA finally numbered. Our so-called blissful bubble bursting on February 5.
Western Australians are going to be in for a real shock. There is no easy way of living with the worst virus in 100 years.
The new rules for West Australians when the border comes crashing down, from mask wearing to proof of vaccination, plus its testing times for international travellers.
COVID-19 does not magically go away.
A warning tonight from Perth doctors. This is just the beginning of the pandemic. The fresh push to hit 90% double jabbed fast. Also, a Madeley mother's tragic decline before killing her 2 young daughters. And a dry argument for Christmas. Champagne supplies under threat, triggering buying limits on festive fizz.
This is 9 News Perth with Michael Thompson.
Good evening. We have a date. February 5 is when the state government says our blissful bubble will burst. WA's hard border to come crashing down 670 days after it was first introduced. It will mean quarantine-free entry for double jabbed, but masks are back in more social settings and proof of vaccination will be required in dozens of venues. And doctors are sounding the alarm, warning it's just the start of our pandemic.
54 days before the hard border finally comes down and it becomes easier for people and COVID to come in.
Today I can announce that WA will ease its hard border arrangements at 12:01 a.m. Saturday the 5th of February. This date is locked in.
A date that ends lockdowns and quarantine, at least for the fully vaccinated. A date that brings our 2-year safety bubble to an end.
Western Australians are going to be in for a real shock from February 5. We are going to be living with COVID-19. But there is no easy way of living with the worst virus in 100 years.
But it means travel is back. People can see their friends and loved ones again, no matter where they are. We've had 619 days of uncertainty, frustration and heartache. It will end on February 5 when we should be close to 90% double jabbed.
Behind our border controls, we've basically been restriction-free since the early days of the pandemic last year. In fact, over the last 18 months, we only went into 3 very short, sharp lockdowns for a total of 12 days.
But it's not a date without strings attached. Anyone arriving from overseas must have tested negative 72 hours before departing and test negative within 48 hours of landing, and again on day 6. If you're unvaccinated and allowed in, you'll be forced into 14 days quarantine.
The G2G system will continue for the time being to help manage these testing rules. And I want to stress, these are interim arrangements based on the current health advice. They will be reviewed regularly.
Interstate travel to WA also requires a nasal or saliva swab 72 hours before getting on the plane. If you're here for more than 6 days, you'll need another PCR test within 48 hours, opening up and facing up to the inevitable.
We support the travel protocols that should allow for a very slow entry of COVID into Western Australia, and what that should result in is a slow burn of COVID through society rather than a tidal wave of severely ill people.
Face masks will have to be worn on public transport in cabs and rideshare vehicles, also mandatory for people entering hospitals and aged care premises. But in the Pilbara and Kimberley, vaccination rates are so low that a tougher approach could be needed for months, even years.
I don't want, but I do expect people to complain and say, you didn't protect us. We're doing as much as we can to get the right information, to get the vaccine available.
And will our hospitals cope if COVID spreads?
There is no doubt that if we get a big surge in COVID, that business as usual in most hospitals will have to stop and elective surgery will need to stop.
About 200,000 people need to get vaccinated between now and February 5 if we're to reach that 90% target.
Soon you will want to travel. You will want to go to big events. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of places that you can get vaccinated around the state.
And for those that don't roll up their sleeves, compulsory vaccination passports will mean no nightclubs, visiting Crown Casino, going to our major stadiums or any event with 1,000 people or more.
Let's just do it. Let's just do the right thing for the next 7 weeks. Then we can open safely, transition out of this.
Many questions still remain about the transition out of the pandemic, which begins, of course, on February 5. For example, if someone in a workplace gets COVID, does everyone around them have to quarantine, and for how long? If COVID hits a school, does it have to close down? These decisions haven't been made yet, but they will all be part of living with the coronavirus. We have a date now, Michael, but it's far from over.
Still got a long way to go.
Yep.
Gary, thank you. The announcement doesn't just provide certainty for separated families, but also WA businesses desperate for the return of visitors. The tourism and hospitality industries have taken huge hits over the past 2 years, craving not just customers, but also workers.
It's a date that will break down the barrier and hopefully give people confidence to take off for WA again.
It is fantastic for the tourism industry to finally have a date.
And it provides the clarity that businesses were looking for.
We're very hopeful that we'll start to see not a trickle, but a deluge of inquiries and bookings coming into the industry.
2 years of uncertainty. The hard border has deprived the tourism and hospitality industries, not just of visitors, but also workers.
It's really important that we have access to skilled migration.
And that's extremely important, both from the international working holidaymaker perspective, but also those living on the East Coast that want to come and work and holiday in Western Australia.
If you're a chef, have skills in food and beverage or front of house at a hotel, industry experts say they are hiring.
We've estimated, based on our surveys, there's around 13,000 vacancies within Western Australia at the moment and will continue through to the end of January.
But one measure the hospitality industry won't cop is what's being put in place in the regions. Proof of vaccination will be required at pubs, bars, restaurants, cafes and bottle shops.
We don't want someone going to the pub or their favourite restaurant to have to show their vaccine passport, so let's get to the 90% now.
A rate the state government says is on track for the reopening on February 5. The Tourism Council expects an influx of visitors entering the state and believes people will have faith the state won't slam shut again.
And that's the certainty that we need for people to plan their family reunions, for visitors to choose WA as a holiday destination, to secure airlines and to secure events.
It's going to be a different year next year, but this is one where WA businesses will be able to travel interstate, to travel internationally, conduct their business as they used to.
With all this travel come February 5, the Tourism Council is concerned about an extra layer of cost to travellers, particularly for West Australians coming home. Each person will have to fork out $150 for a PCR test. The council wants the state government to follow Queensland and Tasmania, where they have guaranteed those tests are free, so it can reduce the financial burden and stress for those wanting to come home. Michael?
Tracy, thank you. In Queensland, almost 5 months of heartache has been healed with hugs, families and loved ones reunited as the Sunshine State opens its borders. Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk is tonight hopeful the days of shutdowns are now over.
141 days of division and despair over in a single moment. Tears were flowing as the border reopened, the first flights touching down in the Sunshine State.
It's just the most amazing thing, I can't tell you. I just been longing for this day for 6 weeks.
We didn't allow ourselves to really believe it was going to happen until today.
Families reuniting, back in the arms of loved ones. Others meeting for the very first time. On the Gold Coast, Julie Hogan had waited 5 months to meet grandson Jonah.
It's like heaven. It's like finally can connect, and people need connection. They need that touch.
Today's a happy day. Today's a great day. It's a very emotional day for many people.
The border finally opened at 2 o'clock this morning. The first cars crossed in the cover of darkness, police conducting random checks.
Proof of vaccination and negative COVID test, please.
A kiss hello between Anna and Mark, separated for 3 months while caring for a sick relative.
It's been terrible what you've had to go through. So, yeah, it's good to be back.
At Melbourne Airport, there were warm welcomes too. Families finally back together.
I haven't been down here since before I fell pregnant, so we can't wait to go see Auntie Alex.
For Victorians chasing the sun, they could almost taste it, with a tropical send-off before getting on board.
Hello Queensland, we're going! I'm actually relocating from Victoria, I've had enough.
We impulsively just booked because we're a bit sick of Melbourne, and as soon as we got told we could leave, we got the first flight out.
10,000 people on 30 flights will touch down in the Sunshine State from Melbourne today, but it's only going to get busier in the lead up to Christmas.
For us and all the cabin crew, it's just great to get back in the air again and do what we love doing.
A ticket on board, the pass to magic moments like this.
Oh my God, we're Mum and Dad!
Tears on breakfast TV as our own Christina Hearn reunited with her parents, all live on Today.
To see them here now, it's like a dream come true.
Mimi Becker, 9 News.
Now to a disturbing case of a Perth toddler whose parents say was denied crucial medical treatment. Despite convulsions and having stopped breathing, the 20-month-old wasn't given a bed at one of our biggest public hospitals. Zarisha Bradley, the child was turned away not once but 3 times.
Michael, the 1-year-old's parents say their little boy was seen by 3 hospitals over a 4-week period and given a different diagnosis each time. At one point, they were told there weren't enough beds to stay overnight and given taxi vouchers. They were also sent home from Perth Children's Hospital with Nurofen a number of times. After experiencing a temperature of 41 degrees and convulsing, he was also discharged from Fiona Stanley Hospital. It turns out the toddler had a kidney infection, complications from a UTI.
The coldness of the staff just basically telling you that your child's not sick and the bed is for sick people. He got compared to a TV, basically. They said to him that when the TV gets too hot, you need to turn it off and shut it down and restart.
The child has made a full recovery, but the Health Minister has requested a full briefing on the child's medical journey to help provide some much-needed answers. Michael?
Zarisha, thank you. A severely depressed Perth mother killed her 2 young daughters because she loved them and believed she was saving them from the world. That's the opinion of one doctor tasked with helping a judge decide if Milka Jurasovic was a murderer or mentally insane.
2 innocent faces forever tied to a mental health tragedy. 10-year-old Mia and 6-year-old sister Tiana killed in their Madeley home when they should have been at school. It was supposed to be a murder-suicide, but their mother, Milka Jurasovic, survived. The 40-year-old now on trial claiming she's innocent of murder due to insanity. The little girl's father made the horrific discovery after a day at work in October 2019. His wife had driven herself to a beach where she was found with self-inflicted injuries. One of several notes left in the house read, "Sorry, I love you. I love my girls most in the world. I cannot have them grow up without me." That morning, little Tiana saw her mum putting knives and rope in the pantry and started crying, asking, "Are you going to do something to me? I want to go to school." The court heard Jurasovic had become severely depressed and anxious in the months leading up to the killings, and 3 psychiatrists have unanimously agreed she was mentally impaired at the time. One of them calling it a crime of passion for her children. She loved them so much and believed she was doing the right thing to save them from her fate. Guilty or not guilty, she's facing the rest of her life locked away for ending her daughters. Louise Rennie, 9 News.
And if you or someone you know needs help, you can contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. Police have issued an arrest warrant for Perth father Jordan Marshall, who went missing near Margaret River emergency fire zone last week. The 40-year-old and his lawyer weren't in court today for a scheduled hearing on criminal damage and assault charges. His burnt-out car was found near the Mammoth Cave tourist site on Wednesday. The heartbroken family of a young man killed after crashing into a tree in our southern suburbs is now confronting another tragedy. 25-year-old Brian Kipigo. His loved ones need $50,000 to bring his body home.
A 25-year-old's final few seconds captured on CCTV. An out-of-control Commodore spinning and crashing into a tree on Thomas Road. Behind the wheel, Kenyan national Brian Kipigo, only 5 minutes from home.
And it is devastating. Especially for the family, it is something you cannot even want to imagine.
6 years ago, he moved here for a better life, but now his loved ones are just trying to get him home.
Sending somebody from Kenya to come and study here and going back in a coffin is not something easy.
Not easy and not cheap. A devastated community facing the devastating prospect of finding $50,000.
We're going to miss Brian. Dearly, we're going to miss Brian. Yeah, so it's really hard, honestly, hard, and with the community that we have, I know everyone is saddened.
The construction worker's immediate family is all overseas, now desperately trying to find ways to farewell him less than 2 weeks before Christmas. What caused the 25-year-old to lose control and skid for several metres is still under investigation, but family have told 9 News that alcohol, drugs and his mobile phone have all been ruled out by police. But in the tragedy, his community isn't giving up hope. Mia Edgerton-Warburton, 9 News.
Pressure is mounting on the Morrison government to extend a temporary tax cut for middle and low wage earners. And there'll be a further boost to the economy when the international borders begin to reopen to students and skilled workers from Wednesday.
Another sign of hope with the first visit to Australia by a foreign leader in almost 2 years. President Moon Jae-in from South Korea here to sign a strategic partnership and $1 billion defence contract. Very good. More of his countrymen and women will follow from Wednesday as the international border cautiously reopens.
Both to Korea and to Japan, and for skilled migration and for students.
And that will help drive an economy surging back from East Coast lockdowns.
350,000 jobs have been created already since the start of September.
The bounce back will boost the Treasurer's 4-year budget forecast.
So much so, we think the budget will be more than $100 billion better off when the Treasurer announces his budget update.
The budget will still post big deficits for years, and gross debt is ticking towards $1 trillion. But the improvement to the bottom line has sparked calls to make a temporary tax cut permanent. The low and middle income tax offset can cut tax by up to $1,080 for those earning between $48,000 and $90,000. It was extended this financial year at a cost to the budget of $7.4 billion, but is currently set to end on June 30.
So we'll wait and see. If something doesn't happen, then what we know is that people will get a tax increase in July next year.
Any election pledge will be paid with borrowed cash. Chris Ullman, 9 News.
A former Perth Archbishop has been defrocked over his failure to act on warnings that priests were abusing children. Roger Herft quit 6 years ago after telling the 2016 Royal Commission he'd let down victims by failing to report serious allegations while working in the Newcastle diocese. The Anglican Archbishop will no longer be recognised as an ordained member. The daughter of slain bikie boss Nick Martin has fronted court on a family violence assault charge. Tia Martin appeared briefly with her partner this morning, a day after dozens of rebels rode through Perth on the first anniversary of their president's murder at Kwinana Motorplex.
Is there anything you'd like to say at all?
The 23-year-old remains free on bail until her next hearing in January of next year. The death toll from the monster tornado in Kentucky is nearing 100, with children among those killed. 1,000 homes were wiped out by the twister, the worst in the state's history.